Thank you everyone for staying with us on the program this morning. We're looking at the LEKKI shooting and the aftermath of it on TMI today. I'm joined by a lecturer, an academic as we now say, all right, from the University of Benin, Department of History and International Studies, Felix Osareme. As always, it's good to see you.
Oye, good morning. Viewers at home, good morning. Okay,
let's get talking about this event. Of course, you have followed passionately over time, but as it stands today, it will appear there are several layers now to the conversation. It is now global, as we will say. Essentially, the Nigerian government has been reacting to assessments by the international community of that incident of 20th of October 2020. What have been your thoughts looking at the developments leading up to this point?
The incident that took place at the LEKKI Toll Plaza on the 20th of October 2020, what we now call 2010-2020, is historic. Nigeria, as one of the graphic artists captured the event that day, the graphic artist repainted the Nigerian flag for us. Nigerian flag is green, white, green. The white part of the flag that is in the middle, the graphic artist painted it red, symbolizing the shedding of blood, the blood of protesters that were asking for an end to police brutality and an improvement of governance in Nigeria. Young Nigerians who came out. It wasn't that day that the protest started. The NSAS protest had already been on for 12 days as at the time of the incident at the LEKKI Toll Plaza on the 20th of October 2020. So that date now sticks because we cannot run away from what happened that day. But we know that our government is always very good at obfuscation, at gaslighting, blaming people for what they have not done right, trying to avoid responsibility where they should rise up to the occasion. And a similar thing has played out in this incident now, where initially the government said nobody died. So my take immediately is that Nigerian government has started again. It's going to be a cacophony of lies, stories, distractions, deniers, that at the end of the day will show us and we expose again to the world that we have in Nigeria a government that does not actually know what it is to govern, does not actually know the essence of trust, the essence of good leadership, how to manage crisis, how to be civil in dealing with the citizenry. That is what we have today. And that's my take, because it is as sad as it is, the protest was legitimate, the demands were in order. Painfully, one of the critical demands that they raised was the improvement of the welfare of the police force in Nigeria.
So they can do better?
They were asking the government to do what it is constitutionally expected to do. And the government went against these young Nigerians who sat down, even in the heat of gunshots. They were still waving Nigerian flag, and they started singing the Nigeria anthem.
The issues are multi-pronged. A lot of analysts have been looking at the position of the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, all right? They've also taken a look at the several positions, because we've had several of them, of the Nigerian army on this issue. And then the federal government has a position. All right. In the midst of all that, we've been seeing footages from that scene. Of course, CNN, the cable news network, has continually released reports and analysis on this matter. How do we have a middle point as far as finding facts goes?
It is sad that as a sovereign state in Nigeria, anything government says most of the time, we don't believe our government.
There's a reason for that, right?
I'm building up the narrative. We hardly believe our government. Most times when things happen in this country, we wait for foreign news media to give us their report, or we hear from foreign media before we believe what we hear about our own state and society. Why is it like that? Because our government lacks trust. The government doesn't trust itself, the government trusts nobody, and nobody trusts our government. In fact, there is this T-shirt I saw. It said, I love my country. I don't trust my government. Describing Nigeria.
Does that work, really? How do you trust?
No, I'm coming to
how do you
that
love your
point.
country and not love,
yeah,
and not trust the government?
And not trust. That's where we are today. First, we didn't even need CNN reports to know what happened at Lekki Top Plaza. This is the digital age. Young boys and girls that sat there, they were doing live streaming, not as if they will record first and post it that you can see they were photoshopping. No. Live streaming means as it is happening, you are seeing the videos
real time
everywhere, real time. Some people picked up shells there, started displaying it. Some people showed their wounds right there in the crowd. I'm not in Lekki. I was in my house in Benin, and I could see it happening. So when we are saying CNN said this, the government is saying this, I think the simplest thing would have been, as William Ofokan would tell us in philosophy, when all things come down, the simplest answer is the correct one. The government should have simply come out and apologize. Oh, we are sorry, we acted rashly. That would have doused all these rhetoric, up and down arguments. But Nigerian government will always grandstand. Nigerian government has a megalomaniac tendency. They believe they know it all. They can never be wrong. Who can talk to them? Nobody. We are in charge. In fact, the concept of sovereignty in the Nigerian sense is taken beyond the norm. So, if something happened in Lekki, Nigerians were recording, doing live streaming, posting videos, making phone calls. We don't even need CNN to come and validate. Do we go to America to go and ask Nigerian NTA to validate what they do in the US? We don't need that, because in the US they cover their space very well. So we should also cover our space. We have local news channels. We had amateur videos. We had live recordings. We had various live streams. We had voice notes. All these things were going on simultaneously, not from one source, from various sources. So if we now bring Sanwo-Olu and the military and the government to the picture, you now see the mismanagement of information that is the nature of Nigerian government. That's what leads to the lack of trust. The integrity deficit of the government is the reason why there is no trust. That is why when the government says one thing, you say, don't mind them. That's what they will always say. We had the newborn babies in Nigeria, they don't even understand the government. They don't want to even believe in the government. When you are saying one, because the government itself is known for acting in breach of its own regulations. The government respects itself only when it has done something and is justifying it, so long as it's beneficial. So the government says it's okay.
We're going to take a couple of calls on this show this morning, just to ensure that we integrate all sides into the discussion. So we're going to leave that number on the screen for you shortly, so you can call in on the program and then, of course, lend your voice to this conversation that's ongoing this morning. Just remember, too, that you can follow us on Twitter at ITV Radio NG. The Facebook timeline is facebook.com/ITV Radio NG. Just include the hashtag TMI Thursday. That way we can wire all of your thoughts into this discussion we're having this morning. But Felix, let's talk about something that's also very critical in this narrative. The traditional media that I proudly represent, for example, vis-a-vis the new media, or the social media as it's popularly called, are we finding reasonable balance between both? Because the bulk of the reporting that came through as far as the Lekki issue is concerned, it was from the social media, and people are saying, okay, well, social media is not so authoritative. Even at that, both local and international media are now using using footage from the social media. How much of sense is that making? I mean, this is 2020.
Nigeria is a theater of absurdities. That is why it will be sounding normal when a question like this comes up. Ordinarily, that question should even come up. But I like the place you took it from, traditional media. What's traditional media? Media is any means by which you communicate information, ideas, and expressions and opinions. So there is a source, there is a recipient, there is a means of transmission. It has moved from one point to the other. Did the other person understand? Did it make sense? Can the person make decisions and opinions from there? That is what the media is all about. So whether you have to use institutional media, such as your television station,
right,
the newspaper, the news magazine, or the one we now call social media, which is individualized, they are all doing the same thing. And the distinction is in the fact that there is excessive regulation in our part of the world of what you call traditional media. Institutional media is actually the better term, where you have television stations, radio stations,
established.
They are established, they are institutionalized.
Right.
So you know them, but the social media is dispersed. Anybody can pick a mobile phone that has a camera, do a recording, so long as it has data, it can upload.
Yeah.
So that is the difference. So it is not so easily regulated. And that is why it is open, just as it is open to development of opportunities and expression of opinions and transmission of information. It is also open to abuse.
Obviously.
It is. But when you are seeing a live stream of an incident that has not been edited, now the institutional media can do editing, but you see, as we say, you cannot, if you want to see a masquerade very well, if you say in one spot a masquerade is,
so you have to change your spot.
You have to change your movement, change your location to get a better view, and that is perspective. So you cannot rely on one source. That's why we use multiple sources when we are doing validation of evidence.
All right.
So in this situation, as at the time this incident was going on in Lekki, it was already late in the day. It wasn't in the evening. It wasn't in the afternoon anymore. And you remember the governor has already imposed a curfew. The curfew was about to take effect. And from information that came later, the time was varied from 6 p.m. to, I think, 10 p.m. So to allow people time to get home because it was sudden.
All right.
Give or take, as at that time, how many television and radio stations were covering the development at the Lekki Plaza? Even if they were covering, they were not doing night coverage. So we cannot blame them. We cannot even hold them to account. We can simply say we use multiple sources to get information across to the desired public. So it is not the issue of which type of media. It is what we make of it. And that is why, even in the social media we are talking of, you need to verify sources. And for your information, anything in social media leaves a trail. You have a phone number, you have your internet protocol address. So it is not as we think of it here. It is not vague.
Yeah.
Everything is traceable. So it is not something that government should actually be afraid of, as it is construed in Nigeria today, because the government is afraid of it because anybody can pick a phone, do a recording and upload it. That is part of freedom of expression. The First Amendment to the American Constitution gave 4 conditions. Clearly, government should not regulate your religious belief. There should be freedom of association, freedom of the press, and freedom of expression. This is the first of the Bill of Rights. When the Americans say that is the power of American democracy. This freedom to express yourself, to communicate that your information.
I want to bring attention to something on the home front. Panels of inquiry have been set up across this country, even though the focal points for the most part appears to be the one set up by the Lagos State government. Have these panels been making a difference in the right direction? I mean, a lot of persons have said they came at the right time, or at least they were timely, or the right move that the government made on that front. But with the results we're seeing today, what's your impression?
Well, interestingly, Lagos happened to be the epicenter of these developments that we are discussing today. But it spanned the better part of the southern part of the country. It was in Abuja and a little bit in Jos, and later some attempts in Kaduna. So it wasn't really nationwide spread that it had. But the areas that it had full expression, those governors have set up panels to look at what happened. It is normal. It is even proper.
Yeah.
You see, we live in a society. Something has happened. Properties, valuables have been destroyed. Lives have been lost. On the side of the public, the citizenry, and the lives of 7 police officers. Whether rightly or wrongly, something went wrong. Something went down. And we should find out why, how, the parties involved, and the critical thing will be, what should we do to avoid a recurrence of this kind of situation? So the panels are in good form. And it is proper that the government should also take stock. Because immediately after the NSAS protest, you remember the issue of palliatives came up.
Yeah.
So it followed the same trajectory. And those issues should be properly looked into so that such will not happen. As it happened particularly in Cross River State, homes of serving and past political personages were vandalized. Homes were raided, valuables were taken. Some of the homes were even set ablaze. Arson became the norm. So it is the duty of constituted authority to find out how we got down to this very sad point in our historical evolution as a nation state. And we must necessarily look at measures to forestall such from happening. It's not to deploy more force. That is not the solution. It is to, first of all, find out who were the parties, what led to this grievance, and project that if you put this in proper form, these incidents will not recur.
I want to ask you something quickly. Just about 2 weeks ago, 13th of November this year, to be precise, 81 professors, US-based professors of, African studies, had written to US President-elect and Vice President-elect to say, look, upon resumption of office, these are the sanctions we're recommending for those or against those who will be found culpable. All right, as far as the LEKKI shooting is concerned. I mean, as we sit here this morning, on the January 20th next year, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would have assumed office. What exactly can you see, by way of projection, could happen, when ultimately a handful of persons have been established to have their finger in this?
Well, when the NSAS protest blossomed, I remember I saw one of the tweets from Joe Biden. Then, as a candidate, they're not going to full election then. He advised the Nigerian government to use proper measures to address the protest, and that there should be as much restraint as possible, because the protesters have right to protest. You see, that clause is where the issue of Biden, maybe when he becomes president, will be taken from. So when the incident was developing, he made a categorical statement. He didn't say the Nigerian government should not talk to the protesters. Yeah. He said they have a right to protest, but please use as much restraint as possible. The incident that happened in LEKKI Plaza, was it restraint? Was it using proper restraint measures? Because in their own society, what they will use for you as restraint will likely be tear gas. If it becomes very serious, water cannons, not live rounds of ammunition. This is where it's going to get very interesting. And this is what CNN has been able to expose. This is what is on the top burner right now, that the British Parliament has started discussing. The range of sanctions. The British Parliament has already moved beyond the issue of whether they should. They have reached a point where they are now saying, who are those to be sanctioned? The president, I've seen the
specific names.
Yes, they have done their presentation already. So they are not at the point of discussing whether to. They are now at the point of.
It's already established that they will.
And in most times they use two methods. There's individualized sanction for the key elements in government who may have giving the instructions or carried out certain acts. Then there could be institutional sanctions. Should it be a particular sector of the government? Is it the army? Is it the police? Is it the air force? Is it the civil defense? Or is it the Nigerian government per se? That means we will now go for economic sanctions. So issues like visa ban, they are individualized. So these are the points that we are facing. And let me quickly give a bit of this analysis, because it is critical to understand this situation. The Nigerian government made a mess of this situation. When the protest started, the young men were not violent. Young men were not violent. They were even taking it more like our ability to express ourselves on how to improve our country. There is nothing wrong in that. What they spoke about was not change the government. They said improve governance. So they were even helping the government to do its job. And the government should have commended these young people. In fact, giving them all the necessary support. Issue white paper. Give a position paper. That was not what we got in Nigeria. Our president refused to speak until the situation began to snowball. And even then, there was pressure. Say something to these people. Do we need to beg our president to address us? A father does not go to sleep when his children are fighting. He calls them to order. What is going on here? Come off, all of you, okay, state your case. All right, you can even suggest a solution to the problem. As I always say, that's what ASU does for the government. We identify a problem, we advance a solution to the problem. Leave the implementation to the government, they don't implement. So these young people came out to the street. Remember, in Lagos, after every protest, they will clean up. They were even giving water and food packs to the police officers that stood by the sidelines. That is how you conduct civilized protest. Protest is a right. It is not something that you decide. No, it is a fundamental right of the citizenry. If they don't like what the government is doing, they can say it openly. And there are processes by which you protest. Even though you have a right to protest, the government also has a right to make sure that your protest does not disrupt other things. That is why when you are to protest, if you want to go out, the police will join you. They will guide you. They will know the itinerary, the route you follow, and they will give you protective detail to ensure that there is no breakdown of law and order, because as soon as you have a right to protest, others have a right to go out, carry out their economic activities, to go their own way. In the situation that happened in Nigeria, this was not the case.
I want to take a few calls at this point, but please, let's stay with the issue. No aspersions and no more slinging on the program. Please, let's stay with the issue we're discussing, the aftermath of the LEKKI shooting, and we're looking at a global response to this issue across the world, of course. So basically, you call in and you state your opinion without having to call names and insult people on the program this morning. Please do well to turn down the audio on your TV sets just before you make that call. So let's take our first call on the program. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Welcome to TMI. Your name and your location, please.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Dario Sawaru. I'm calling from Isio.
Great.
Yes, I want to thank Mr. Sareme at the studio there for his analysis so far. And I like the topic for discussion today. It also goes around, trust. The government has not been able to get Nigerians, to trust it on its policies and all the way they relate with Nigerians, especially this current government, without wanting to be negatively critical of its policies. When they say something, they don't mean it, and they don't want to implement it. Each time they come up with policies, we don't have any cause to trust them at all, and it's very painful. In other parts of the world, things are not done this way. Look at what the people agree with ASU now. There is no assurance that even in the next 2 months, we will still be on the same page, just like we're trying to be on the same page so that children will go back to school. Everybody, even when the EndSARS protest was on, I really want to draw our attention to that part. We saw a concerted effort by the Minister of Labour, Chris Ngige, dragging ASU to the negotiation table so as to get its youth off the streets. But as soon as they were able to quell the tension of that EndSARS protest, Ngige went back. And everything went back to as if it's that. It's like negativity is normal in Nigeria. When you are trying to make things right, it's as if it's odd. So the first thing that we need from our government is to be able to build trust. It's not too difficult to do. If you say something, you mean it, you implement it, the next time we have reasons to believe you. Right. That's what we want from our government.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sawa.
Thank you.
We do appreciate it. Hello, good morning. Welcome to TMI. Okay, we lost that call. Let's keep them coming so we can have your voice heard on the show. Please turn down the audio on your television. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Yes, welcome to TMI. Your name and location quickly. Okay, I thought you would have turned down the audio on your television. You can't hear yourself and be talking on the program. I mean, as they say, you can have it both ways, all right? So let's keep those calls coming. There are just 2 more calls we're done. Please turn down the audio on your television. Good morning. Hello, good morning. Okay, I think we lost that call, obviously. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Yeah, please, would you turn down the audio on your television set?
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
As the lecturer has rightly said, sorry, I'm Caleb calling from Airport Road.
Okay, welcome to the program.
Okay, as the lecturer has rightly said, the government is no longer to be trusted.
Why so?
The only trust we have now is the amateur live videos and streaming, and the government is actually looking for a way to cover up these things because they are afraid of what the whole world will say in regards to the EndSARS protest. The fight against the demands of citizens by the government will continue if things in the country is not well aligned.
Well, are we fighting the government, or we are advancing the need to have a better style of governance? I just want us to have a context. Are we fighting the government, or we're saying, look, we can do it better than we're already doing right now?
No, we are not actually fighting the government. No one is fighting the government. But the issue remains that the only fight that will always come up is the fight of the citizens against the government. Because
why would the citizens fight government? That's the point I was making a while ago. Are we supposed to be fighting government, or we're supposed to be vehemently drawing government's attention to what it ought to do in the first instance?
we have to be drawing government attention to what we ought to do.
Yes.
But since the government is not doing it, it's not like we're going to fight them. Of course, no one can fight the government. As the secretary said, they said after God is the government. So they're fighting the government like you're fighting your own self, because we are the government to an extent. So it's a medium for everybody to put heads together, look for one way or the other to actually address the issue that is affecting citizens.
Thank you so much, Caleb. Brilliant contribution that you've made about the need to continue to push the narrative about better governance. And a lot of persons are saying it's a good thing that, at least at this point, it started with the INSAS demonstrations as we know them. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, welcome to the program.
My name is Philip from Benin.
Philip, go ahead and talk to us.
The NSAS protest, the shooting at Lekki Toll Gate, the persons or the personnel involved in the shooting have not been brought to book.
Okay.
And still, the government are blaming protesters for the destruction of properties. Meanwhile, it was the shooting at the toll gate was enraged because of the life that was lost. The destruction at Lagos was enraged because of the shooting of protesters in the toll gate. So the government, instead of solving or resolving the issues, are going out, putting blames on the youth, on hoodlums, instead of meeting these mistakes, correcting these mistakes of theirs. There are a lot of shooting around Nigeria. Medical, where the palliatives were invaded, they were shooting in Edo State. There were shootings there by personnel. Live, I saw it where so many lost their lives. But nobody said anything about that because it was not covered by any camera or anything. So the government is just busy covering their errors and mistakes and putting blames upon youth.
Okay, thank you for that contribution. I said we're going to take just 2 more calls and then we're done. The gentleman, I mean, the penultimate call was such that the guy made mention of something, that those who were at the Lekki Toll Gate, that's the soldiers at the Lekki Toll Gates who did the alleged shooting, are yet to be brought to book. And then the question is, how can you bring to book these persons where even the army authorities have continued to insist that, look, yes, at one point the army authorities said our soldiers were not there. Later they said, well, we deployed soldiers, of course, but they only went there with, as it were, rubber bullets. Later the army authorities said, yes, they went there with rubber bullets. In fact, they shot rubber bullets, which doesn't kill, doesn't hurt, only leaves scratches on your skin. Okay, well, they added live ammunition, which they never used. So it's been, as it were, an escalation of the position of the army. So is it possible to be talking about bringing anybody to book at this point?
Interestingly, Nigeria plays the ostrich frequently. You know this bird called ostrich? When there's a problem, the ostrich will dig its head into sand. Forget that its entire body, which is bigger than its head, is exposed. Yeah. That's what Nigerian government does. When you are playing with a little child, the child will tell you, let's play, I can see you, can't see me. The child will do like this. The child will say, yes. Because the child has covered his own eyes, he believes that since his own vision is obscured, yours is also obscured. That's how Nigerian government relates. Let's catalog this argument very well. Curfew has been issued by the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and the army came out, wherever they came out from. At the initial stage, it was that they claimed that there was no shooting at all, that the army was not there. Later, the argument changed. The governor argued that he does not have the capacity to deploy the army. He asked for help. He did ask them to shoot. Okay.
Then what kind of help? I mean, I'm not in the governor's head.
No,
what kind of help would you have expected?
Ordinarily, because of the kind of society...
From the army?
Because of the kind of society we live in, because of Nigeria we are in today, when you see army deployed, people will start running.
Okay, just from saying that.
Even without the army shooting, go past the military checkpoint. The military, they don't tell you to open your boot. They don't, usually they won't even come to your car. They will stay there and be looking at you. You'll be looking at them. You will see suddenly every driver that is coming towards the military checkpoint is comporting himself very well. The one is more psychological. Because in our part of the world, of course, we have a lot of unknown soldiers that can do and undo. So you don't want to be a victim of an unknown soldier. Okay, let's say these ones came in there. Live recordings and live streaming show that there were soldiers at Lekki Toll Plaza. There were shootings. Interestingly, it wasn't even from there alone. There were CCTV cameras in nearby buildings that recorded the staccato of fire that came from those guns. The army is creating a problem for itself in Nigeria. I mentioned integrity deficit just now. Somebody mentioned building trust. What is trust? Do as you say. Say what you mean what you say. Nigerian government claimed initially that the army was not there at all. Between Lagos State government, the Army Air Command, and the federal government, they are not coordinating their information very well. If they were, this would have been very easy. Let me bring it down to the basics. Live rounds. Let's not use the word bullet, because bullets are actually the ones that the projectile that can do harm. So there are live rounds, there are blank rounds. That's what we call them in normal language. So the blank rounds are the ones used for parade reviews. Okay. There are some dedicated weapons that can fire blank rounds. It's not every gun that can fire blank rounds. We have to be very clear. FN and G3s can fire blank rounds. Second thing that should be corrected here, blank rounds can be very lethal. Don't say they cannot kill. They cannot just crash. If you use at close range, the fatality will result. You cannot put a blank round in a particular gun and put it close to your head and say it will not kill.
Of course, the army officer, I mean, representing the army at the panel in Lagos. Yes. Taiwo said, look, he said you can only hurt yourself if, for instance, you carry the blank round, for example, close to your eye. Yeah.
So, in the incident that happened at LEKKI Plaza, they switched off most of the security lights. The cameras have gone off. Who knows who is close to whom? We cannot say. Let's us still build up the rhetoric first. They have deployed soldiers. The government denied initially that there were no soldiers from them. Later, they agreed that soldiers were deployed. That's already falsehood that's trying to be corrected. Well, one lie leads to more lies to cover up the first lie. Soldiers have been deployed. They got to LEKKI Plaza. You are saying that they carried blank rounds. The guns they carried, was it one for shooting blank rounds? Later, you agree that they have live rounds along with blank rounds. The Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, said at a point that those people that got there were not soldiers, that they were hoodlums dressed like soldiers. You see, we make a mockery of this country so well. Government officials should be very, very reticent when they are talking. If you don't know, say, we do not have enough information at this stage. We will get back to you when we have the full information. That gives you some level of time to gather your facts together. But when you start with deniability, you deny. Because you don't want to take responsibility. The next thing, if information comes out that nullifies your claim, you deny again. Another information comes out. You keep flipping and flipping till you flop.
I want us to talk about something quickly as we wrap it up now. First, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Oyema, said the Nigerian government is already doing a back and forth, like interacting with the UK authorities.
Shuttle diplomacy.
Exactly, which one would expect to be happening already at this point in time. But he also said something incisive. He said, look, the members of parliament do not speak for the British government. That's on the one hand. But ultimately, I'm wondering, is there any possibility that we can bring closure to this? And how soon could that happen?
Okay. The penultimate caller made a point about the system where the government interfaces with people, that people are the government, so we're not really fighting government. We are agitating that government should be up and doing.
Right.
Anybody that understands parliamentary system of government will know that the cabinet is considered from where? The parliament. So if you are saying the parliament is different from the government,
that's in the United Kingdom.
In the United Kingdom. In fact, that is what you learn in secondary school government class. It sounds funny. And this is our Minister of Foreign Affairs, who should know better. The minister should say, we are putting in place effort to address the situation. That gives you room. I believe our problem in Nigeria, particularly in the government sector, is that our government is too authoritarian. They say things as if nobody can call it. Even the first speech given by the president to address the answers, he was already pointing out that foreigners should come and hear our own side first. The governing government, that they appreciate their concern, but they should wait and hear our own side first. Something is happening. There is live streaming. The world is a global village. Nigerian government cannot sit on its high horse and begin to pontificate. It doesn't work that way. As things are happening, people are having evidence. They are gathering it. You know, in Nigeria, we don't have good data management system. We don't keep information very well. That's why we believe that we can say anything we like. That's not true. As those incidents were developing in Lekki, people used drones. It wasn't just CCTV cameras alone. Drones were there, phones were there.
Some persons are not even talking about spatial cameras, for example.
So all these things, you harvest them together, you synthesize them, and everything will play out. Right from the time the soldiers left their base, when the vehicles drove out, we have clips now. Whether they are mature videos or not, they are bodies of evidence.
In 1 minute, in 1 minute, is there any chance we can bring closure to all of this?
The government should admit where it has gone wrong. There is no shame in saying, I made a mistake. Admittance of mistake is the first step to knowing the nature of the problem, or you now identify the problem and say, okay, we didn't do this right, we can do it better. We will proceed from there. We will do this to ease the pains of those that lost lives and property in the course of this NSAS protest. For the international community, we stand up as a responsible government and we live up to expectation. That is the desire of every citizen in this country. And Nigerian government can do that successfully and still continue what I mentioned as shuttle diplomacy. Send high-power delegation to interface. The British government will not just suddenly slam sanctions on Nigerian government. No.
Right.
They will have to go through process, and the process has started. You can stop the process before it gets to the final point where there will be execution. So there is continuous interaction.
All right, so let's hope there's a disruption in the interest of Nigeria as far as this issue is concerned. My guest already talked about shuttle diplomacy, which is crucial at this point of the conversation. But we also don't want to get to a point where irreversible damage would have been done as far as this issue is concerned. Thank you so much, Felix Osareme.
Thank you very much
for coming to talk about this issue with us. We're taking a quick break at this point. A couple of interviews before we draw the curtains on the show this morning. Stay with me.